never judge the book by its cover. Well, please, for the love of God, don't do that with MC Hammer. MC Hammer had a problem.
He went from making $33 million a year to losing it all in what felt like a single night. But MC Hammer's fall wasn't just about money. It was about betrayal, greed, and a darker kind of danger that never reached the headlines. Behind the designer suits and the million-dollar estates, the streets of Oakland held a story even Hammer couldn't dance his way out of. Before we can grasp the scale of his collapse, we need to understand how impossibly high he climbed. Because this wasn't ordinary fame, this was stratospheric, history-defining domination of an entire industry. And the higher he rose, the harder gravity hit. Stanley Kirk Burrell was born on March 30th, 1962, in Oakland, California, into a reality that would have crushed most before they even began. Growing up in East Oakland with 8 siblings, raised by a single mother while his father worked days as a warehouse supervisor and nights managing a gambling casino, young Stanley was surrounded by poverty, noise, and the kind of struggle that buried most ambitions. But Stanley wasn't most kids. From the start, he showed a sharp business sense that would both elevate and later haunt him. He sold stray baseballs outside the Oakland Coliseum during A's games, hustling for every dollar a kid could earn. That grind caught the eye of team owner Charles O. Finley, who hired him as a bat boy and clubhouse assistant between 1973 and 1980. Inside that clubhouse, stars like Reggie Jackson started calling him Hammer, a nod to his resemblance to baseball legend Hank Hammerin Aaron. The nickname would one day define him, but back then, it was just a badge of survival. After graduating from McClymonds High School in 1980, Burrell briefly attended community college before joining the U.S. Navy in 1981. He served as a petty officer, third-class aviation storekeeper until his honorable discharge in 1984. Even during his service, music never stopped calling. He was sharpening his rap skills in small clubs, adopting MC for Master of Ceremonies, and forming a Christian rap duo called the Holy Ghost Boys. The earliest seeds of his empire were being planted in the unlikeliest soil. Burrell's entry into music was self-made, self-funded, and driven purely by faith in himself when no one else believed. In the mid-1980s, he borrowed $20,000 from former Oakland A's players Mike Davis and Dwayne Murphy to launch Busted Productions, running it from his basement like a true independent hustler. His debut album, Feel My Power, 1986, sold over 60,000 copies on his own Bustin' Records label, pushed by club-ready singles like Ring 'Em that took over Bay Area dance floors. It wasn't superstardom yet, but it was enough. Enough to get attention. Enough to prove that this Oakland kid had something real. And attention came. Capitol Records signed him in 1988, offering a staggering $1.75 million advance, a massive leap for a hip-hop artist when the genre was still fighting for mainstream respect. The label re-released Feel My Power as Let's Get It Started, 1988, and it went multi-platinum with hits like Pump It Up and the title track, an electrifying fusion of rap, funk, and dance that no one had pulled off before. Hammer's charisma, precision choreography, and positive, faith-driven energy set him apart from peers like Run DMC and LL Cool J. He wasn't just a rapper, he was a full-scale performer who saw music as movement, spectacle, and emotion. But nothing could prepare the world for what came next. The year was 1990, and MC Hammer was about to rewrite hip-hop history. His album Please Hammer Don't Hurt 'Em didn't just sell, it demolished every record, becoming the first hip-hop album to go diamond, moving over 18 million copies worldwide. 18 million in 1990. In a world where hip-hop still fought for recognition, this wasn't a hit. It was a cultural earthquake. It was nothing short of a cultural earthquake, driven by the era-defining anthem You Can't Touch This. Built around Rick James' Super Freak, the song dominated the airwaves and climbed to number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100, launching Hammer into superstardom. The same album delivered more hits. Pray reached number 2, and his rendition of Have You Seen Her? Became another fan favorite. Hammer's approach was revolutionary, blending samples from legends like the Jackson 5 and Prince with explosive choreography, the Hammer Dance, the Running Man, movements that turned him from a performer into a global phenomenon. Suddenly, kids were doing the Hammer Dance in schoolyards. Adults were rocking parachute pants. And everywhere you went, those first few beats echoed like an anthem. Stop. Hammer time. In 1990, he swept the Grammys with 3 wins, including Best R&B Song and Best Rap Solo Performance, alongside multiple American Music Awards and a People's Choice Award. His world tour became the stuff of legend. His face was on lunchboxes, shirts, and even Mattel dolls. Then came Hammerman, his own Saturday morning cartoon in 1991, introducing an entire new generation to the man who had turned hip-hop into family entertainment. By 1991, Forbes estimated his net worth at $33 million, with an annual income pushing $30 million. Money pouring in from record sales, endorsements with Pepsi and KFC, and world tours that packed arenas across continents. Adjusted for 2025, that $33 million a year equals roughly $70 to $76 million, placing him among the highest-paid entertainers on Earth. Not just in hip-hop, in entertainment. He stood shoulder to shoulder with movie stars, stadium rockers, and pop icons who'd ruled the charts for decades. And he was beating them at their own game. Hammer followed with Too Legit to Quit in 1991, which sold over 5 million copies and produced massive singles like the title track, peaking at number 5, and Adam's Groove, a top 10 hit in both the US and the UK. The videos were cinematic spectacles, filled with celebrity cameos from Jim Belushi to Queen Latifah, costing millions to produce. Each one looked less like a music video and more like a blockbuster trailer, an evolution of what hip-hop visuals could be. But here's the truth that most people missed behind the flash, the fame, and the parachute pants. Beneath the pop rap image, MC Hammer was still Oakland to his core. And in Oakland, success doesn't erase your roots, because the streets never forget one of their own.
One of these rappers was Redman of the duo Method Man and Redman. They making a song. Method Man says, I like MC Hammer, he cool. Redman says, man, MC Hammer corny. They stopped the track. The producer goes, what'd you say? Redman said, I said he corny. The producer said, I'll just take that part out for you. Redman said, no, keep it. I said he corny.
Another Oakland legend would later shed light on who Hammer really was. Personally, I've always admired him for the way he carried himself and handled his rise. Sure, we were at odds when we were younger, but it was never about violence or hatred. Some people tried to test Hammer, assuming that his dancing and flashy style made him soft, but they quickly learned otherwise.
But Hammer used to, people used to like test them a little bit and just to see if he was, dancing Hammer. And a few times in life, I've heard people tell stories like they caught the wrath of MC Hammer Ain't No Punk.
At the height of his empire, when money poured in faster than anyone could count, when every door seemed open and the world itself felt within reach, MC Hammer was standing on the edge of a decision that would unravel it all. Because making money and keeping money are two very different games. And Hammer was about to lose his in front of the entire world. The collapse wasn't sudden. It was spectacular. When you're making $30 million a year and every crowd screams your name, it's easy to believe the river will never run dry. You start to feel invincible. You start saying yes to everything. To ideas, to people, to dreams that make perfect sense in the moment but look reckless in hindsight. And Hammer's choices would become legendary. Not for their brilliance, but for their cost. At his peak, with more cash than he'd ever imagined possible, he began spending on a level that stunned even Hollywood. The centerpiece of that extravagance, the crown jewel of his empire and the very symbol of his downfall, was his mansion in Fremont, California. In October of 1990, Hammer bought a 12.55-acre hilltop estate for $5 million, a staggering purchase at the time. But to him, it wasn't just real estate, it was poetry. The property overlooked his old East Oakland neighborhood, a daily reminder of how far he'd climbed from those same streets where he once sold baseballs to survive. Yet the existing 11,000 square foot mansion wasn't grand enough for his vision. So, Hammer did what only someone earning $30 million a year might dare to do. He tore it down and started again from the ground up. What rose in its place wasn't a home. It was a monument. A statement to the world. A 40,000 square foot palace that redefined excess. The rebuild alone cost somewhere between $12 and $30 million. Yes, just the renovations. Gold-plated gates engraved with the words Hammer Time greeted guests as they entered. Inside, $2 million worth of imported Italian marble lined the floors. The property featured 2 swimming pools, one famously shaped like his signature parachute pants that became the ultimate symbol of a man who had turned hip-hop into high luxury. A bowling alley, a baseball diamond, tennis courts, a 17-car garage, a professional recording studio, a rehearsal hall, a 33-seat theater, an exercise room with 2 saunas, a media center, a guardhouse, a pool house, and for reasons known only to Hammer himself, 4 dishwashers, because apparently 3 just didn't cut it. The estate featured computerized climate systems, a marble steam room, and perhaps most famously, a gold-plated hot tub and matching toilet inside the master suite. Scattered throughout the grounds stood marble statues of Hammer himself, because when you're MC Hammer at the peak of fame, why not enshrine yourself in stone? The annual cost to maintain this monument to success ranged from $500,000 to a full $1 million every single year. 200 staff members, gardeners, chefs, security, maintenance crews, worked full-time just to keep the gates open and the lights shining. $500,000 to $1 million simply to exist. In later interviews, Hammer would admit that he rarely used most of what he'd built. The marble steam room sat empty. The lavish living room with its imported furniture gathered dust. Even the gold-plated fixtures were more spectacle than sanctuary. He described the house as feeling less like a home and more like a vacation property he never actually visited. Rooms stayed dark. Spaces stayed unused. It was opulence without purpose, wealth for the sake of display. But as extravagant as it was, the mansion was only the beginning of Hammer's spending spree. His car collection looked less like transportation and more like a dream sequence for auto enthusiasts. Depending on the source, Hammer owned between 17 and 20 luxury vehicles, a Lamborghini, a 1990 Ferrari valued at $185,000, a classic 1975 Mercedes-Benz priced around $83,000, several other Mercedes models, vintage showpieces, and top-tier sports cars that turned heads wherever he went. For special occasions, he kept a custom stretch limousine, because when you're Hammer, every arrival had to be an entrance. And when he wanted to leave the ground entirely, he did it in style. Commercial flights were beneath him. Hammer traveled by private jet, reportedly a Boeing 727, and not one but two personal helicopters. Because when time is money, why choose between air and sky when you can have both, and a spare just in case? And then there were the horses. Oh, the horses. In 1991, he founded Oaktown Stable, pouring between $2.50 and $5 million into a fleet of 19 to 21 thoroughbred racehorses. Each horse cost anywhere from $250,000 to over $1 million apiece. To his credit, a few of them actually won. His horse Light captured the 1991 Kentucky Oaks and other major titles, earning roughly $1.23 million in prize money. Another, Dance Floor, placed third in the 1992 Kentucky Derby. But the victories were fleeting. The stables, the trainers, the transportation, the breeding, those costs mounted fast. And soon, even the winners couldn't keep up with the bills. Beyond the mansions and cars, Hammer's fortune flowed into a non-stop cycle of indulgence. Shopping sprees for diamond-encrusted jewelry, custom-tailored designer outfits so extravagant they made Fashion Week look humble, lavish gifts for friends and family, luxury cars, gold chains, watches, and cash. His live shows were equally monumental, featuring towering stage sets, pyrotechnics, and dozens of professional dancers whose precision made every concert feel like a Broadway production. Each performance was a cinematic event, each outfit a declaration of dominance, every stage moment another reminder that MC Hammer was larger than life. But among all these expenses, one stood above the rest, the decision that would ultimately drain his empire dry, his entourage. Driven by loyalty, gratitude, and a deep sense of duty to the community that raised him, Hammer made it his mission to lift people out of the same poverty he had escaped. He built an army of roughly 200 employees, many of them childhood friends and family members from East Oakland. They weren't just staff. They were bodyguards, dancers, assistants, and neighborhood faces given titles and paychecks out of love, not necessity. The monthly payroll alone topped $500,000, that's $6 million a year, just to keep the family fed. When Hammer hit the road, he didn't travel light. A scaled-down crew of about 40 people came along on every trip, dancers, stylists, friends, and hangers-on, filling hotel suites, tour buses, and first-class seats across the country. The costs ballooned with every mile: meals, rooms, security, and transportation for what had essentially become a traveling village. Yet Hammer saw it differently. To him, this wasn't waste, it was purpose. These were lives he was changing, people he was giving a second chance. Friends who'd grown up with nothing were now earning salaries, wearing tailored suits, and supporting their families. It was loyalty in motion, generosity on an industrial scale. But good intentions don't balance the books. By the mid-1990s, the industry that once crowned him king had moved on. Hip-hop was evolving. Gangster rap, gritty, raw, unapologetically street, had taken over the charts. Hammer's upbeat, pop-infused dance style suddenly felt out of place in a genre chasing authenticity. Trying to pivot, he released The Funky Headhunter in 1994, a darker, harder-edged project that went platinum and peaked at number 2 on the R&B charts with Pumps and a Bump. Respectable by any standard, but nowhere near his diamond-selling past. Albums like Inside Out, 1995, and Family Affair, 1998, followed, but each landed with less impact, barely moving units as label changes and shifting trends left him behind. Overexposure began to take its toll. Feuds with artists like Redman and Jay-Z, who mocked his mainstream sound and flashy image, eroded his credibility even further. In an era obsessed with realness, Hammer's brand of polished, commercial hip-hop suddenly looked like a relic. The money that once poured in like an endless flood was now reduced to a slow drip. But the real disaster wasn't his falling income. It was that his lifestyle didn't fall with it. The Fremont Mansion still demanded up to $1 million a year in maintenance. His 200-person payroll still devoured $500,000 every month. The horses, the cars, the staff, the jets, every symbol of success became a financial weight dragging him under. His earnings collapsed, but his expenses never blinked. To make matters worse, Hammer had placed control of his finances in the hands of his brother, a man with no background in accounting, management, or long-term planning. There were no savings accounts, no investments, no backup plans. Just a belief that the hits and the money would never stop. Hammer lived by one philosophy: money exists to be spent. And as the checks stopped coming, reality hit hard. The music had faded, but the bills never did. Debt came crashing down like a tidal wave. Unpaid loans piled high. Former employees, once loyal members of his entourage, now lined up in court, suing for back pay. The IRS and the California Franchise Tax Board hit him with liens for unpaid taxes. Even copyright disputes resurfaced, most notably with Rick James over the Super Freak sample that powered You Can't Touch This. The settlement granted James co-writer credit and royalties, slicing deeper into Hammer's dwindling income. Every direction he turned, another wall closed in. Then came the breaking point. On April 1, 1996, MC Hammer filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in the U.S. Bankruptcy Court for the Northern District of California, in Oakland. The filing pulled back the curtain on a financial collapse of staggering proportions. Assets listed at $9.6 million against debts exceeding $13 million, with some reports pushing total liabilities as high as $13.7 million. Over 200 creditors were named, from government agencies to private contractors, all demanding their share of what was left. The IRS alone claimed $75,813 in back taxes, plus another $100,000 for unpaid federal taxes from 1993 to 1994. The California Franchise Tax Board wanted $550,197, also with an additional $100,000 penalty. Alameda County sought $235,389 in unpaid property taxes. Even Winterland Productions, the company that built his legendary stage shows, was owed $1 million. The empire that had once seemed unstoppable was now collapsing in slow motion, debt by debt, lawsuit by lawsuit. Even Hammer's friends couldn't escape the fallout. NFL star Deion Sanders had lent him $500,000, using Hammer's car collection as collateral. Lawyers lined up with unpaid invoices, $484,511 to Larry Blake, $450,000 plus $163,963 to Sarah McDwyer, and smaller amounts to others like G. William Hunter. Even interior decorators Ted and Janice Smith, who had helped design his mansion, were left holding a $110,000 bill. Their business reportedly collapsed when Hammer failed to pay. In a June 1996 bankruptcy hearing, Hammer personally addressed the court, his tone humble and defeated. He explained that his income came mostly from inconsistent royalty checks. One recent payment had been $375,000, but there was no pattern, no guarantee of future earnings. He said he had borrowed from Deion Sanders simply because he didn't want to deal with the red tape of traditional banks. By September 1998, the case was converted to a Chapter 7 liquidation, and in 2002, Hammer's discharge was denied due to unresolved disputes. The crown jewel of his empire, the sprawling Fremont mansion that had cost between $17 to $42 million after purchase and renovation, was listed for $6.8 million and eventually sold in August 1997 for roughly $5.3 to $6.8 million to Sterling 8 Television Latin Aid, a Singapore-based firm. The sale marked a heartbreaking end. A home that had symbolized triumph now sold for a fraction of what it cost to build. Then came the final blows. The cars were repossessed. The private jet, gone. The helicopters, gone. The horses, sold. Every visible symbol of success, the empire he built to prove he'd made it out, vanished one by one. In later interviews, Hammer spoke about the fall with disarming honesty. I had too much money and not enough sense. It was a brutally simple truth, a confession from a man who'd learned the hardest possible lesson under the brightest spotlight imaginable. His downfall wasn't just a financial failure, it became one of hip-hop's most public cautionary tales, a symbol of how quickly fortune can fade. But what sets MC Hammer apart from the long list of stars who burned bright and fell fast is that his story didn't end there. Most people who lose everything, the homes, the fame, the respect, never recover. They become tragic reminders of excess, living what not to do examples. But Hammer was never most people. The same relentless drive that took him from dancing in Oakland parking lots to selling 18 million albums wouldn't let him stay down. Out of the wreckage of his financial empire in the late 1990s, a new Hammer began to emerge. One who valued purpose over possessions and redemption over riches. Hammer's rebirth began not in a boardroom or a recording studio, but in a church. After losing his fortune, he found something money could never buy: purpose. He became an ordained Pentecostal minister, dedicating his life to faith in a way that reached far beyond the gospel-infused themes that had always echoed through his music. This wasn't a rebranding effort or a media stunt. It was real. It was a man who had watched everything crumble and decided to rebuild on a foundation that couldn't be repossessed. He went on to host MC Hammer and Friends on the Trinity Broadcasting Network, a faith-based talk show where he spoke openly about spirituality, redemption, and the hard-won lessons of his downfall. Hammer even officiated several high-profile weddings, including actor Corey Feldman's in 2002 and Motley Crue frontman Vince Neil's in 2005, merging his old-world celebrity with his new spiritual mission. His ministry extended beyond the cameras. Hammer worked in prison outreach programs and youth mentorship initiatives, preaching redemption and second chances, lessons he knew intimately. But Hammer's comeback wasn't confined to the pulpit. This was still the same man who had once turned a $20,000 loan into a multi-million-dollar empire. His business instincts hadn't died. They'd just been buried under the weight of excess. And now, they were about to resurface in one of the most unexpected arenas imaginable. In what might be one of the most surprising reinventions in entertainment history, MC Hammer became a Silicon Valley tech investor and advisor, not as a mascot or celebrity figurehead, but as a legitimate, hands-on participant. He spent 10 to 12 hours a day learning, working, and collaborating with tech founders. In 2007, he co-founded DanceJam.com, a dance-centered social network that raised $4.5 million in venture funding before being acquired by Grind Networks in 2011. As Chief Strategy Officer, Hammer used his entertainment savvy to shape its branding and audience engagement strategy. But what truly set him apart wasn't Dance Jam, it was his early investments. Hammer recognized the potential of emerging tech long before the mainstream caught on. He quietly invested in startups that would later reshape digital culture: Twitter, now X, Square, Bump Technologies, Flipboard, and Pandora, even advising Pandora's founder on early streaming strategy. Consider that timing. These weren't safe bets after success was proven. These were pre-IPO, early-stage investments. Hammer was playing in serious venture capital territory, spotting transformative ideas before the rest of the world saw their value. It was a second-act few could have predicted, and even fewer could have executed. One of Hammer's most notable wins was his early investment in Twitter, made back when the platform was still figuring out what it wanted to be. That single decision positioned him years ahead of countless mainstream investors. In 2010, he launched Alchemist Management, representing MMA fighters like Nate Marquardt, and Wiredu, an ambitious deep search engine designed to rival Google by focusing on contextual relationships. Wiredu ultimately shuttered in beta due to lack of traction, a reminder that even visionaries face setbacks, but it showcased Hammer's willingness to innovate and take risks. By 2011, he had been honored as Social Media Marketer of the Year at the Gravity Summit, recognized for his authentic online presence and his then 2.6 million Twitter followers. Proving he wasn't just a nostalgic name from the 90s, he understood the new digital landscape better than most. In 2016, Hammer took another step deeper into the world of venture capital, becoming a limited partner in Swan and Legend Venture Partners, a Washington-based firm focused on tech innovation. Today, Hammer continues to consult for roughly 8 companies, with a growing focus on the intersection of artificial intelligence and music, a fitting frontier for a man who's lived at the crossroads of creativity, technology, and reinvention his entire life. His recent posts on social media spotlight partnerships like Universal Music's collaborations with AI innovators such as Stability AI and UIO, underscoring his ongoing engagement with the forefront of technology. Musically, Hammer never fully stepped away from the spotlight. He released albums including Family Affair, 1998, a gospel double LP featuring a collaboration with Tupac Shakur, Active Duty, 2001, a patriotic project launched in the wake of 9/11 with proceeds directed to charitable causes, Look Look, 2006, which moved 300,000 units worldwide and featured production from Scott Storch and Dance Jam the Music, 2008 to 2009, tied to his Dance Jam initiative. Later singles included Better Run Run, 2010, a notorious Jay-Z diss track, Raider Nation, 2013, an anthem celebrating his cherished Oakland Raiders, All in My Mind, 2014, with Oakland Fight Club, and an updated rendition of Help the Children, 2017. He appeared as a judge on Dance Fever, 2003, starred in the A&E reality series Hammer Time, 2009, providing an intimate look at family life in Tracy, California, and delivered memorable performances such as his 2012 American Music Awards mashup with Psy, fusing gang NOM style with Too Legit to Quit for a new generation of fans. By 2025, Hammer's net worth is estimated at $2 million, accumulated from music royalties derived from his 50 million career record sales, live performances, endorsements, and residuals from technology investments. This represents a deliberate, measured rebuild. He resides in Tracy, California, with his wife Stephanie, married since 1985, and their 5 children. Far removed from the extravagant Fremont mansion that once symbolized both his apex and collapse, this is not a return to $70 million fortunes. Instead, it is sustainable, strategic financial management, built on diversified income streams rather than a single source vulnerable to sudden loss. This is the approach Hammer might have benefited from in the 1990s, lessons learned the hard way, applied with the clarity of experience. By 2017, he had resolved outstanding IRS debts totaling $779,585 from the bankruptcy period, closing a particularly painful chapter. Yet echoes of the past occasionally surface, reminders that financial recovery is rarely linear. In August 2025, JP Morgan Chase filed suit against Hammer and his company, You Can't Touch This LLC, alleging breach of a financing agreement for a 2023 Land Rover Defender valued between $114,000 and $376,000. Monthly payments of $2,433 ceased in May 2024, leaving a balance between $76,700 and $327,900 as of July 2025, with the bank seeking repossession of the vehicle. The lawsuit, filed July 31, 2025, in Alama County Superior Court, highlights that vulnerabilities from the past can linger even after substantial recovery. But this is where Hammer's story diverges from typical celebrity cautionary tales. It is not truly tragic. Yes, he lost $70 million. Yes, he made devastating financial missteps. Yes, he endured one of the most publicized bankruptcies in entertainment history. But tragedy suggests finality, a defeat that cannot be surmounted. Hammer's narrative is defined by resilience, by reinvention, by transforming the lessons of failure into something enduring, sustainable, and meaningful. Today, he commands over 405,000 Instagram followers, and millions more on Twitter X, where he posts daily on technology, faith, motivation, and culture, maintaining influence and relevance without chasing another diamond-certified album.
Love is unconditional. You know what I'm saying? It's like when you love somebody, you gotta love them through the storms. You gotta love them on the good days, the bad days. Love is unconditional.
Love, bam. And the second question is, what do you love more than money?
Jesus Christ, life, eternal life. I love eternal life more than money. I love family more than money.
This is the real MC Hammer, not merely the image of parachute pants and you can't touch this. Not the cautionary tale of bankruptcy and excess, but a multifaceted human being who achieved extraordinary heights, endured devastating setbacks, and ultimately found redemption through faith, family, and reinvention. The lessons embedded in his journey are clear for anyone willing to pay attention. Diversify your income. Employ professional financial advisors. Live beneath your means. Save and invest with foresight. Recognize the difference between cash flow and true wealth. Understand that fame is fleeting, but sound financial habits endure. These are not revolutionary truths, yet witnessing someone acquire them the hard way, losing $70 million in the process, renders them impossible to ignore. Ultimately, MC Hammer's story is not tragic. It is profoundly human. It is about making mistakes and learning from them, about falling spectacularly, then rising again with dignity, about redefining success, not by the dollars in your bank account, but by the impact you leave on the world and the people around you. If the world forgets your name, that is one thing, but if you forget yourself, that is the real loss. As Hammer himself reminds us, click on one of the cards on your screen to explore more stories like this.